You want to know how I managed to completely wreck my marriage and end up as the bad guy? Like, I'm talking about going from having this whole life with someone to watching him get engaged to another woman on Instagram? Well, grab your drink because this is going to be a mess. I'm McKenna, 29, and I still can't believe how everything played out. I met Asher at this tech startup 3 years ago. He was doing something with software development. Honestly, I never really understood what he actually did, but he was always super passionate about it. We clicked instantly during one of those awkward office happy hours. You know those relationships where everything just falls into place? Yeah, that was us. Within 6 months, we had a routine. Morning coffee runs, weekend hikes, all that couple stuff you see on Instagram. We even adopted this crazy energetic husky together, Luna. I handled all our social media posts, making sure everyone knew how perfect we were. Asher wasn't big on social media, but he'd go along with my posts and photo shoots because it made me happy. Looking back, maybe that should have told me something about how different we were, but I was too caught up in crafting our image. Everything was great until his company started expanding like crazy. Suddenly, there were all these new people, and that's when Autumn showed up. She was this new project manager, or whatever, and at first, I didn't think much of it. But then Asher started mentioning her in random conversations. Autumn had this great idea for the project, or Autumn's really helping streamline our workflow. It was always so casual, but something about it just got under my skin. I started noticing little changes. He'd be more active on his work chat after hours, or he'd get these calls during dinner that he'd step away to take. He said it was all about this big project they were working on. But my mind started going to places. You know, when you get this feeling in your gut that something's off? That's where I was at. The thing is, nothing really changed at home. He still kissed me goodbye every morning, still made dinner with me when he wasn't working late, still planned date nights. But I couldn't shake this feeling that something was happening at work. I started checking his phone while he was in the shower, scrolling through his work emails when he left his laptop open. I know, total invasion of privacy. But when you're convinced something's wrong, you start doing crazy things. One night, I saw a message pop up on his phone from Autumn about meeting early the next day to go over everything before the team gets in. That's when I really started spiraling. Why did they need to meet early? Why couldn't it wait for normal work hours? He said it was just project stuff, but my mind was already racing with all these scenarios. I wish I could say I handled it like a mature adult. But nope. Instead, I was about to start something that would blow up my entire life, and I didn't even realize it yet. The worst part? I was so convinced I was right that I never stopped to think about what would happen if I was wrong. Spoiler alert, I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life. Instead of talking to Asher about my concerns like a normal person, I went full psycho. I started taking screenshots of every single interaction I could find between them. Their likes on each other's work posts, the times they were both active on Teams, every single email where they were both CC'd. I even started keeping a note on my phone with timestamps of when he'd mention her name in conversation. Real stable behavior, right? My friends weren't helping either. Every time I'd bring up my suspicions, they'd feed into it. Men always cheat with work wives, or you should trust your gut. Looking back, I think they just liked the drama. But at the time, having them validate my crazy theories just made me more convinced I was right. The project they were working on was getting more intense, and Asher was staying later at the office. He'd come home exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open through dinner. He'd try to tell me about the project, but I wasn't really listening. All I could think about was him and Autumn working alone together all those hours. That's when I started my little campaign. At first, it was just subtle hints to our close friends. I'd post these sad song lyrics on my Instagram stories, or share those quotes about betrayal and staying strong. You know, the kind of stuff that makes people start asking questions. And boy, did they ask questions. I started telling our friends that I had evidence of him cheating. I didn't, but I convinced myself that all those screenshots and timestamps added up to proof. I'd show them normal work conversations and act like there was some hidden meaning behind every mundane message. Going over the project timeline obviously meant they were meeting up somewhere. Team lunch had to be a cover for something else. The whole time, I was still playing perfect wife at home, making dinner, watching movies together, acting normal. Asher had no idea what I was doing behind his back. He'd kiss me goodbye in the morning, not knowing I'd spend the next 8 hours painting him as this horrible cheater to anyone who would listen. I didn't want to leave him. That wasn't even on my radar. I just wanted everyone to hate him as much as I did in that moment. I wanted him to suffer while still keeping our life together. It made perfect sense in my messed up head at the time. Then one night, Asher came home looking different. Not tired like usual, but angry. He'd found out what I was doing. Someone had finally shown him my social media posts and told him what I'd been saying. He tried to show me his project timeline, the group chats with the whole team, even offered to let me talk to his boss. But I was too far gone. I just screamed at him about Autumn until he stopped trying to explain. He warned me that I was going to regret this, that I was about to blow up our entire life over nothing. But I didn't listen. I couldn't listen. I'd convinced myself so completely that he was cheating that anything he said just sounded like lies to me. Plus, I still thought I had all the power. I never thought he'd actually leave. I just wanted to punish him while keeping him. That's when I decided to take things nuclear. I wrote this long, detailed Facebook post about how someone's husband was having an affair with his coworker. I didn't name names, but everyone in our circle knew exactly who I was talking about. I made sure to time it for maximum damage, right in the middle of his workday, when I knew he'd be in meetings and couldn't defend himself. The post blew up. Everyone was sharing it, commenting with heart emojis and "stay strong" messages. I started getting DMs from people I barely knew, asking for details. Instead of stepping back, I doubled down. I told his sister, who I was close with, that I had caught them. I didn't specify how or when, I just let her imagination fill in the blanks. She was horrified and immediately told their whole family. I even went as far as emailing his company's HR department, hinting at inappropriate workplace relationships. I knew it would make his life at work uncomfortable, but I didn't care. I was running on pure emotion at this point, just throwing grenades everywhere and watching them explode. Asher was desperately trying to damage control while still managing this massive project at work. He'd come home looking more and more defeated each day. He kept trying to show me proof: his location history, security footage from his office building, witness statements from his team. But I'd just laugh and tell him I wasn't stupid. In my head, all his evidence just proved how well he'd planned his lies. His friends started unfollowing him on social media. People would give him dirty looks at the grocery store. His family was barely speaking to him. I watched all this happening and felt powerful, like I was finally in control of something. He'd come home and try to talk to me, begging me to just listen, but I'd either ignore him or start screaming about Autumn again. Looking back, I think part of me knew I was wrong. There were moments when I'd see how broken he looked and almost want to take it all back. But I'd gone too far. I'd told too many lies, convinced too many people. Walking it back would mean admitting what I'd done, and I wasn't ready to face that. The really messed up part? Through all of this, I still expected us to stay together. In my twisted logic, I thought once I'd punished him enough, things would go back to normal. We'd still have our morning coffee runs and weekend hikes with Luna. He'd just learn his lesson about getting too close to female coworkers. Yeah, I know how crazy that sounds now. Then one afternoon, my phone started blowing up, not with the usual supportive messages, but with questions. Confused people asking what was going on. Apparently, Asher had finally had enough of trying to convince me privately. He was about to show everyone exactly how wrong I'd been, and I had no idea what was coming. Asher had finally snapped. After weeks of trying to reason with me privately, he'd gathered everything. And I mean everything. He made a single post that destroyed my entire made-up reality. First, there was a recorded video from his entire team explaining the massive project they'd been working on, some huge software update that could make or break the company. Then came the timestamps of every team meeting, backed up by building security footage showing the whole team working late, not just him and Autumn. But that wasn't even the worst part. He included screenshots of my harassment, all my fake concerned emails to HR, my DMs to his family, my social media posts. Seeing them all laid out like that, I looked completely unhinged. Then came the gut punch. Autumn was engaged, had been the entire time, to a woman. Yeah, I'd convinced myself he was having an affair with someone who wasn't even interested in men. My phone started blowing up again, but this time it was different. People were furious with me. Friends I'd convinced to take my side were messaging me, asking what the hell was wrong with me. His sister, who I'd manipulated into believing all my lies, sent me this long message about how disgusted she was. Even my own family was horrified. I tried to defend myself at first, said I genuinely believed something was happening, that my feelings were real even if I was wrong. But nobody was buying it anymore. They'd all seen how calculated my lies had been, how I'd systematically tried to destroy his life while playing victim. When Asher came home that night, he didn't even look at me. He just handed me divorce papers and said his lawyer would be in touch. That's when it finally hit me. I'd actually ruined everything. My mind started racing, trying to find a way to fix it. I even tried to apologize, but he just laughed. Not a happy laugh, this empty, hurt sound that made my stomach drop. "I told you," he said. "I told you you were going to regret this. I begged you to just wait, to just listen, but you wanted to believe the worst about me so badly that you created this entire fantasy. And now you've got what you wanted. Everyone knows the truth, just not the truth you made up." I started crying, telling him we could work it out, that I'd tell everyone I was wrong. He just looked at me like I was a stranger. "You didn't just accuse me of cheating," he said. "You tried to destroy my life. You tried to ruin my career. You turned my family against me. And the whole time, you were the one lying to everyone." The worst part, he was right. I hadn't just accused him. I'd orchestrated this whole campaign to punish him for something he hadn't even done. And I'd been so convinced I was right that I never stopped to think about what would happen when I was proven wrong. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Asher moved out that weekend, taking Luna with him since she was technically his dog. I tried fighting him on that, but he just pulled up the adoption papers with his name on them. Another thing I hadn't thought through. I'd been so focused on destroying him that I forgot he could take things from me too. Everyone at work found out. My own company's HR department called me in for a meeting about concerning behavior after they found out about all the harassment emails I'd sent to Asher's workplace. I ended up having to switch departments to avoid the whispers and stares. Turns out, trying to sabotage someone's career doesn't look great on your own record. My social media became a war zone. Every single one of my "poor me, my husband's cheating" posts came back to haunt me. People were sharing screenshots of them side by side with Asher's evidence, calling me out as a liar. I lost hundreds of followers in days, had to turn off my comments because people kept tagging me in posts about toxic wives and false accusations. The divorce proceedings were humiliating. My lawyer tried to warn me that my behavior would look bad to a judge, but I didn't realize how bad until I was sitting there while Asher's lawyer methodically went through every lie I'd told, every manipulative post I'd made, every person I'd tried to turn against him. It was all there in black and white, date and time stamped. I looked like a monster. His family completely cut me off. His sister, who used to be one of my closest friends, blocked me everywhere. My own parents were barely speaking to me. They'd really loved Asher, and watching me self-destruct like this broke their hearts. My dad actually asked me what happened to the daughter he raised. The friend group split, but not the way these things usually do. Nobody chose my side. Even my oldest friends, the ones who'd originally backed up my suspicions, slowly stopped responding to my texts. One of them finally told me that watching me try to destroy someone's life over absolutely nothing had scared her. "I don't even know who you are anymore," she said. The worst part was, I still didn't know how to take full responsibility. I kept trying to explain myself, saying things like, "I really believed it at the time," or "my feelings were real even if I was wrong." But those excuses just made people angrier. They'd seen the calculated way I'd spread my lies, how I'd deliberately tried to cause maximum damage while still playing innocent. One night, after too many glasses of wine, I drove by our old house. Asher's car was in the driveway, and through the window I could see Luna playing with her toys in the living room. It hit me then. That wasn't my home anymore. That wasn't my life. I'd blown it all up because I couldn't handle my own insecurities, and now I had to live with the consequences. That was a year ago. Want to know what finally broke me? I was scrolling through Instagram on a random Tuesday night, using my Finsta account since most people still have me blocked, when I saw it. Asher's engagement announcement. Not to Autumn, obviously, but to this girl named Claire who apparently works in marketing at his company. The post had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments congratulating them. I spent hours that night going through every photo I could find. They met 6 months after our divorce was finalized. She's pretty in this effortless way, and their pictures together actually look genuine, not staged like I used to make ours. There's one where they're hiking with Luna, and the caption talks about how their first date was a dog walk. Even my dog replaced me. The comments under their announcement were what really got to me. All these people talking about how happy they were for him after everything he went through. His sister wrote this long paragraph about how Claire helped restore their family's faith in relationships. Everyone kept saying how he deserved this happiness. Meanwhile, I'm still single because anyone who Googles me can find Reddit threads about my psycho ex-wife behavior. I tried dating for a while, but it's hard when you have to explain why you have no friends in your photos or why you can't introduce them to your family yet. One guy actually found the old posts about everything that happened and ghosted me. Can't really blame him. Who wants to date someone who made up lies to destroy their ex? My career never really recovered either. I had to take a lower position at a smaller company because the rumors followed me everywhere. Turns out, when you try to get someone fired with false accusations, it makes other employers nervous. Who would have thought? Sometimes I catch myself wanting to reach out to Asher to finally give him that real apology he deserved. But then I see how happy he is, how he's thriving without me, and I get angry all over again. Not because he cheated, I know now he never did, but because he got to move on while I'm still stuck in the mess I made. My therapist says I need to take accountability for my actions before I can really heal. But how do you admit that you ruined your entire life over something that was all in your head? That you destroyed someone you loved because you were so convinced of your own lies that you couldn't see reality? The truth is, even now, part of me still wants to justify what I did. Like, yeah, I was wrong about the cheating, but if he had just been more understanding about my insecurities, if he hadn't worked so late, if he hadn't mentioned Autumn so much. But that's the thing about lies. Once you start telling them, it's easier to keep lying to yourself than to face the truth. So here I am, single, starting over at 30, watching through a fake Instagram account as my ex-husband lives the life we were supposed to have. And the worst part? I did this to myself. No one else to blame. Just me and my lies and my stupid need to punish someone who never did anything wrong. Some lessons you learn too late, I guess.